Speaking of which, we've got another Tier 2 game to take you through. We've got Portugal hosting Canada.
Yeah.
This is
a very interesting game. Like from objectively, just the way both of these teams play. Very pretty game going in store in this one.
100%. It's in Portugal's venue, the Car Rugby do Jamor in Lisbon. Obviously going to be taking place this Saturday, same time actually as the Spain-Fiji game. It's going to be a 3 o'clock kickoff local time and our time in Portugal. Refereed by Frank Murphy of Ireland, Ben Blaine and Adam Leal on the sidelines. It's a funny old game because it's a game between two sides on very different trajectories. Yeah. Portugal are hunting their second ever Rugby World Cup appearance and look better than they ever have, while Canada have obviously just failed to qualify for the competition for the first time in their history. Canada, obviously the great rugby tradition, have won all 4 of the previous meetings between the sides.
There you go.
But Portugal have just been a revelation this year, and if you're not abreast of it at this stage, you should be, and just watch these guys play, because they have been, without question,
their backline's great.
They've been the story of Tier 2 this year.
Have,
even Chile, step aside, because Portugal have been this year's story of Tier 2. They have played some sparkling rugby. They really have.
They have, and they bounced back even from that heartbreaking last gasp defeat to Romania where they had them all but beat, and then they kind of dialed out. They celebrated prematurely, and then they kind of blew along doing it and got wrestled down, but they bounced back and managed to streak away with wins. Portella's a very, very nice young 10, but their wingers, Marta and Storty, I think, on either wing, lightning, lethal. They just, particularly that game against the Netherlands, they were just scoring for fun. I think it was 4 tries for one of them, 3 tries for the other. They have lovely shape. They put lovely shape on the ball. They actually, as far as converting line breaks into tries, they are as good as you'll see in Tier 2 level, which is where Canada want to be in terms of how they aspire to play the game. But as far as the tools and as far as what we're seeing on the evidence on the pitch, Portugal look the superior side at the moment. So you're right in saying it's 2 different trajectories. If Portugal were to qualify for the World Cup, it would only be their second, whereas obviously, as you're saying, Canada only missing out for the first time. But it is in Lisbon. It is. I'm making Portugal slight favourites here as we go in, but I suppose we will look at preview.
Yeah, I mean, for Canada, it's sort of the long process of rebuilding kind of begins with this tour. I mean, as far as just the host point of view for Portugal, they are getting ready for a game against Japan next week, which is very much kind of the team on which they model themselves. That'll be
idols.
A great game to watch. I'm just really looking forward to that one. They are missing several of their sort of marquee players, which includes the talismanic Samuel Marques, who's playing for a Pro D2 team, and he's moved to 10 for them.
Oh wow! He's a good footballer.
He does run the game very well. He has been the linchpin of the attack, the tempo setter, a really, really special looking player from 9. But they have all kinds of talent in their backline. They really do. Portela at 10 has been excellent, but on the wings, Rodrigo Marta and Rafael Storti have been some of the stories of the year. But likewise, even in the centre, Jose Lima, very fine looking player.
Appleton, who's captain, I think, and their most capped player as well. He's grabbed a few nice tries.
The whole backline has been special.
They just dial in how to run off each other. Like once the line's broken, they all have lovely support runs that they run, and very often their passing is on the money, and they can carve teams open.
They opened up some robust defences at Tier 2 level, like Russia 60 odd points or whatever it was, 49 points. The Netherlands 60 points they put on them, but even Romania, like they caused that defence all kinds of problems. They put it up to Georgia at times, but they really do. They work it so hard. Like they look for the space. They have this wonderful consistent blindside wing position which kept working against defences in Rugby
Europe. Giving the little inside ball to Portela, it works every time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. They got the blindside wingers coming in, running lines off each other, and then someone running a line off him, sort of like that classic All Black stuff that you would have seen back in 2015, obviously at a lower level, but those same kinds of explosive inside outside runners running off each other, and it's been working all year for them, and I see no reason why it won't against Canada.
Are bringing on the defensive end, you're thinking, ooh, this is a very attackable team for our attack-based team, which is very much what Portugal have been about. They should obviously be looking to improve in the pack and be less shocked. They do have guys like De Freitas, who's a very exciting prospect in there. They have a few good players, But every now and then when it goes wrong for them, it's because they're getting kind of swallowed up at set piece and in the contact zone. So
and we saw Canada hustle pretty well against the US at times in that area, and I'd say the US would probably be stronger than Portugal at set piece.
Sure.
So that's definitely a point of concern and a point of focus for them, is improving in those areas. But it is about the offense, and they should be looking to shock the Canadian defence, because they're like the US and Chile both opened up Canada at times, and they play slower than Portugal do. Portugal play at a lightning speed. They get their back rowers on the ball. They try and just avoid rucks. They turn line breaks into tries really, really well. They're so good to watch. If you have the means of watching, you absolutely should, because they're box office. The game is going to be broadcast, by the way, on Vimeo via Portugal. They have a Vimeo account, so
everyone
you can get it on.
Loves when something's on Vimeo and you have to go on Vimeo instead of
whatever
YouTube
the hell
or something.
Vimeo
normal.
is.
No, I know Vimeo. I've been down this route. Not normally for rugby matches now, I have to say. But then sure, it's a weird old autumn where you have to do Amazon Prime to watch test matches anyway. So it's all getting weird. But at least it is broadcast, and as you say, it is worth watching. For Portugal, to be honest, are worth the price of admission alone. They are a great team to watch.
Yeah, and it'll be a test. I'm just curious to see how they cope without Marques as well, because he's the leader of the offense.
He has been, in terms of setting that ferocious tempo. Like Portella's a young guy at 10. Marques is kind of pushing 30 now, or
he's in his 30s.
He's in his 30s, so he's a bit more of an experienced head. So don't know who the stand-in is, but whoever it will be is going to have to kind of drive a similar tempo, or try to drive a similar tempo, and just facilitate those runners that they have out wide, and make the game a high-tempo, high-scoring shootout, because I think they should be confident in their ability to win that. If they can set up a shootout, they'll win.
They'll win probably by lots. They'll win probably something similar to what they did to the Netherlands or something like that. I mean, they might not stop. I mean, they could put 50 on Canada if Canada aren't careful.
True.
From their point of view, obviously the Canadians licking their wounds. It's a very similar squad to what they brought to the party in that very disappointing game against Chile. They've got some good players. They've done something interesting this week, which is that they've taken Nelson out of the team, because I don't disrespect Nelson, but he's so not the future or the present of this team. It's like he's just.
And we watched him he played for Ulster for a few seasons, and he was in reserve for Ulster, and he wasn't quite cutting the mustard at URC level. And it's like I was delighted for him when he got the Canadian call up, but I was also looking at Canada going like, really? That's the answer at 10, finding this guy from the URC who's not quite at the URC level to be your test level 10.
He's not done much wrong.
No, he hasn't. They do need
to be leaning on themselves and building from the ground up as well.
You look at what Uruguay are bringing at 10 and 9 and 10 and the like, and then similarly Chile, like the you don't need to be
those teams, and even
they're built on local talent.
I would say Portugal as well.
The same.
Exactly. It gives you an easier identity rather than just putting together some hodgepodge of journeymen from all over who don't even know what it is to be Canadian, and it definitely it dilutes it a little bit when you're doing that, and especially when it's tier 2 level and you're not top class players anyway. I think it's just it's okay to do it in moderation, but a little too much a little too often. So what they've done this week is they've still got Brody in. Speaking of which, he's a Safa, but he's a pretty good scrum half.
He is a good scrum half.
And they've got Spencer Jones, a Kiwi, who's a 10 but has been playing for the Arrows. He's coming in. He had been playing 12 for them over the course of
one of their better footballers out there as well.
So he gets a go in the 10 shirt. I like the look of that. And just as I'm seeing it now, Peter Nelson switches to fullback, so he's not totally out of the squad. But Spencer Jones getting a go at 10 is definitely interesting, and it's all about sort of width and distribution and trying to have a cut at the Portugal defence, which isn't perfect by any stretch.
They're slight players. Like, mind you, Canada aren't the biggest team either, but they probably will have a slight physical edge here in terms of their pack men. They do have some big units in that Canadian pack themselves. They should be, it's an unusual state of affairs, but they should be targeting things like scrum to try and get an edge on, because Portugal have been vulnerable there before, even at tier 2 level. That's where they tend to sacrifice some of their great control that they have when they have the ball in their hands. But sometimes at set piece, at source, they can lose the ball very quickly because they're slight, they're small. You should be looking to rough them up, make it a bit more of a dogfight, and then try and execute in that dogfight, find your own tries. Because a shootout, as much as they do have ambition and their shape through Kingsley Jones, I think it has been kind of pretty to watch them kind of run these patterns.
When they do it right, they look good moments.
For a moment, they look good.
And they can take tries, which is always a good thing for a tier 2 team. It means you're not totally out of it ever.
Yes,
and I do like that. And listen, if they can edge the set piece, if Connor Keys and Lucas Rumble can have similar, if they can have similar games to what they did against the US up in Canada, be physical, own the contact area, win the physical battle, and turn it into a shootout in which you can get some stuff off the Portuguese defence.
If you're winning the advantage line, then that's good.
You make it interesting. You make it interesting. If they come out here shoulders sagged away from home,
then they will be cut to ribbons. Cut to ribbons. They can't, like those back, the centres particularly will have to be alert to the danger all the time, because there is danger all the time with Portugal. They're dreaming of very, very impressive passes and very, very nice lines. So it's on them to be proactive on the defence and shut them down.
They have to come with a bit of heart. Like they've got a match here against Portugal, then they've got a match next week against Belgium. Then that wraps them up for what has been a catastrophic year for them. The rebuild process begins slowly, but I think they will want to end on a high. They will want to put a positive footnote on the year at the very least.
Sure. It's hard. Grab a few wins and arrest some momentum to take with. Obviously, it's like there's very few. Like, momentum's a curious thing, but when you get dumped out of the World Cup in qualifying for the first time ever, that tends to run your momentum meter right down to zero. You kind of grind to a bit of a halt there. It's not just the season over, it's the cycle over. It's 6 years before you can be at a World Cup again.
And here's hoping that some form of good competition can be put together in the Americas next year, so that COVID notwithstanding, so that they can actually get some games of consequence, because obviously the World Cup qualifiers have ended on quite a bum note for them. But they're going to give this a go anyway against Portugal. How do you see it going?
I'm going to back Portugal here. I'm going to do the same thing that I was doing in those World Cup qualifiers, and I'm just looking at it going, like, I like Portugal, I like what they're doing. And I was looking at Canada going, don't really like Canada, don't think I'm convinced by what they're doing. So I think Portugal are going to be the ones who win. The last time I saw them, they were great.
The last little 2-match cycle they had against Russia and the Netherlands, they were better even than they had been at the beginning of the year. They learned some lessons.
Because they took that Romania dished them out a very harsh lesson at the very beginning of the season in this ground at home, where they had the game all but won. They were like 2 scores up with around 10 or 15 to play, and they were celebrating. The subs were flooding in, and then they kind of had an adrenaline dump, and the big Romanian pack sniffed it out and managed to maul them into submission then for the remainder of the game and nick it on them. And since then they've been very, very good. Literally since then they've dialed in not doing that, being disciplined, being focused on next play mentality, next ball mentality, and just having good offensive instincts to kind of go and attack any team. I mean, they're last. Like this year in terms of points scored, they kicked it off with 16 points registered against Georgia. Since then, 27 points up against Romania, 43 points scored against Spain, 61 points scored against the Netherlands, 49 points scored against Russia. In Russia. Yeah. Insane. I mean, they should be bullish about trying to put 50 on these Canadians. They should be arriving with an All Blackian chip on their shoulder.
It remains to be seen. Obviously, there's always the caveat of, like, once you've put everything on ice and then you're starting up again.
Everything has to. Form takes a while to bed in, but there's a touch of class is permanent to the difference in these teams, I suggest. Yeah. But like it's possible that Canada are more at the pitch after their competitive games or their campaign they're just coming off. That is a possibility, but no, I think Portugal have the tools to get this done.
100%.
Get it done in style.
I would think so, and definitely a fun team to watch. We're going to move Thank you very much for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to give it a like, share with your friends, and leave a comment down below as well. We really do want to hear your thoughts.